So, hey, I talked about a couple days ago, part one of Love and Light. I talked about people repenting in fear of end times. And I mentioned, like, what about now and repercussions? And I kind of wanted to clarify a little on that. Um, it's not like I think there's anything wrong with people repenting or anything like that. Um, but I was thinking more um, about people focusing on what they should also be doing now as well. And I was thinking about the whole thing about people asking for and receiving forgiveness, but the facts still remain that there's consequences for our actions, and that's what I was trying to bring forth. Um, there's natural consequences and repercussions, just as I previously mentioned, karma or punishment or law of the universe. So let me just illustrate the consequences in a little story. Um, so imagine a mother made a nice dessert after supper for her child, right? And she used like all the fresh organic ingredients, and it looks and smells amazing. And of course, she put it way out of reach of her child, who was mischievous and really not always obedient, and he pretty much lacked self-control despite repercussions in the past. The mother goes outside to tend her garden. The child sees the cookie jar on the counter. Now, this cookie jar is not where the dessert is. This is just a separate cookie jar. Now, knowing that he cannot reach or have the dessert that she made for after supper, he decides it'd be a good idea to steal a cookie from the cookie jar. And he's also well aware that the house rule is to ask for a cookie, get permission, things like that before, he takes something. Now, he can't quite reach the cookie jar, which contains actually stale old cookies that the mother had forgotten to discard upon their expiration. So he goes and disobediently pushes a step stool up to the counter, and he stretches to reach the glass jar. He's on his tippy toes, and finally he's able to reach the jar. And just as he's biting into what turned out to be a very stale cookie, his arm catches the jar and the stool gives away. And the jar comes crashing down to the floor, and he bites his tongue as he's falling. So, of course, the jar breaks into pieces when he hits the ground. And so, obviously, this is not a cool scene. This is probably the most shitty day of his life, being a child. So, of course, the mother comes rushing in to see what the noise is about. And upon seeing all of this, she's very displeased and unhappy. Her son just caused this whole situation, this kid. And so the child's natural consequence for his actions are obvious. Like, had he not been disobedient in trying to steal the cookie, he wouldn't be on the floor in this big old mess. And if he would have been patient, he would have received the dessert. Now, of course, his mother forgives his actions. She's not going to like cast him out of the family forever over this, but still, he broke a rule, and there's still repercussions for breaking rules of the house, right? So after she cleans him up from the mess, he's sent to timeout. And he does not get that dessert for sure. So as he sits in his timeout, he can taste the one bite of stale cookie that he ate. It tastes like cheap ingredients full of like just fake God knows what preservatives, like cardboard and crap. And it leaves a really bad taste in his mouth for the rest of the evening as he contemplates his misdeeds. So he feels really bad for disobeying his mother, and he also feels disappointed in himself. And then he also pains at the thought of the dessert that he lost. So that's just a basic illustration of consequences and repercussions. And obviously we're taught these types of lessons growing up. But my thought in the message that I put up a few days ago was about that it seems that as adults, people are forgetting these very basic lessons. And so, that was basically my thought process. We're kind of veering away from the basics and the big picture sometimes. So maybe we should be a little more mindful on the everyday actions and the repercussions and the fact that there's still consequences to our actions. And maybe try to make decisions that won't, cause those kind of unnecessary repercussions. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so that was just a little clarification on where I was going with that and a little bit more details on what I was thinking about that night. Anyways, have a good night, everyone.